Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Part 1, The Night Before the Exam. My name is Chen. I am 28 years old. I am a neuroscience researcher at Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois. I study the brain. Specifically, I study what the brain does while we sleep. But I want to start this story not in a laboratory. I want to start it in a college dorm room in Boston, Massachusetts, when I was 19 years old and had made what I can now recognize as one of the worst study decisions of my life. It was 11 o'clock at night. I had a biology exam at 8 the next morning. I had not studied enough during the week, not because I was lazy, but because I genuinely believed, as many students believe, that the night before an exam was the most important night. That if I just stayed up long enough, reviewed enough material, pushed through enough fatigue, I would know everything in the morning. I stayed up until 4 in the morning. I drank 3 cups of coffee. I highlighted so many sentences in my textbook that the pages turned almost entirely yellow. At 4, I felt in the specific delusional way of the severely sleep-deprived that I had learned everything there was to learn. I slept for 3 hours. I woke up. I went to the exam. I could not remember almost anything. Not because the information was not there. It was there, somewhere, but my brain could not retrieve it. The pathways were blocked. The connections were loose. 3 hours of sleep after a night of forced memorization had left me with a brain that was physically incapable of performing the task I was asking it to do. I failed that exam. And that failure, as failures sometimes do, sent me in a direction I would spend the next 9 years following. I wanted to understand what had happened to my brain, why sleep deprivation had undone hours of studying, and what sleep was actually doing that I had been so casually throwing away. Brain fact: the brain uses approximately 20% of the body's total energy. Even during sleep, it never truly turns off. Part 2. What is sleep really? Most people think of sleep as the absence of activity. The brain turns off, the body rests. Nothing important happens. Sleep is, in this common understanding, simply the time between the useful parts of the day. This understanding is completely wrong. Sleep is not the absence of brain activity. It is a different kind of brain activity, in many ways more complex, more important, and more productive than anything the waking brain does. While you sleep, your brain is doing some of the most sophisticated work it will do in a 24-hour period. Think of it this way. During the day, your brain is a busy office. People are coming in and out constantly. Phone calls are being made. Emails are being received. Decisions are being made in real time. The office is running, but it is reactive. It is responding to what is happening right now. At night, when the office closes, the real work begins. The papers on the desk are organized, the important documents are filed properly, the temporary notes are transferred to permanent storage, the problems that were too urgent during the day to think about carefully are now examined thoroughly, turned over, connected to other information, solved. This is what sleep does. It is not a rest from learning. It is a continuation of it, a different phase, operating by different rules, doing things the waking brain cannot do. When I finally understood this, really understood it in my second year of graduate school, sitting in a lecture about sleep and memory, I thought about the 19-year-old version of me in that dorm room. All those hours of highlighting, all that yellow ink, and the 3 hours of sleep that undid all of it. I had not failed the exam because I hadn't studied enough. I had failed because I had thrown away the part of the process that makes studying work. Brain fact: the brain uses approximately 20% of the body's total energy. Even during sleep, it never truly turns off. Part 3. The 4 stages of sleep. To understand how learning happens during sleep, you first need to understand the structure of sleep itself. Sleep is not one single state. It is a cycle, a series of stages that your brain moves through repeatedly throughout the night, each stage doing different and important work. There are 4 main stages. Let me explain each one clearly. Stage 1, light sleep, N1. This is the transition between waking and sleeping. It lasts only a few minutes. Your brain waves begin to slow. Your muscles may twitch. You can be woken easily. This stage is the doorway into sleep, not sleep itself. Stage 2, true light sleep. N2, your brain waves slow further, your body temperature drops, your heart rate slows. This stage lasts about 20 minutes in each cycle and makes up about 50% of your total sleep time. During N2, your brain produces specific electrical patterns called sleep spindles, bursts of rapid activity that researchers now believe play a critical role in moving information from short-term to long-term memory. Stage 3, deep sleep. N3. This is slow wave sleep, the deepest, most restorative stage. Your brain produces large, slow waves. It is very difficult to wake you during this stage. This is when your body repairs tissue, releases growth hormones, and strengthens your immune system. For learning, deep sleep is when the brain consolidates factual information, the kind you consciously study and try to remember. Stage 4, REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement. Your eyes move quickly under your closed eyelids. Your brain becomes highly active, almost as active as when you are awake. This is when most dreaming occurs. REM sleep is critical for emotional memory, creativity, language learning, and the integration of new information with existing knowledge. A full sleep cycle takes approximately 90 minutes. A healthy night of sleep contains 4 to 6 of these cycles. Each one is different. Early cycles have more deep sleep, later cycles have more REM sleep. This is why the last hours of sleep, which people most often cut short, are disproportionately rich in REM and therefore disproportionately important for learning. Brain fact: Harvard researchers found that a 60 to 90-minute nap after learning produces memory improvements equal to a full night of sleep. Sleep doesn't just help learning, it completes it. Part 4. What your brain does at night. Now that you know the stages, let me tell you specifically what the brain is doing during each one and why it matters for learning. During the day, as you learn new information, your brain stores it temporarily in a region called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as your brain's inbox. It receives new information quickly and holds it short term. It is fast and flexible, but it has limited capacity. It cannot hold everything forever. During deep sleep, stage 3, something remarkable happens. The brain replays the day's experiences, not literally, not like a movie, but in compressed, accelerated form. Neurons that fired together during learning fire together again during sleep, strengthening the connections between them. This process is called memory replay, and it was one of the most exciting discoveries in neuroscience of the last 30 years. Researchers at MIT placed electrodes on sleeping rats and monitored their hippocampal activity. They found that while the rats slept, their brains replayed the exact same neural patterns from their daytime maze running at about 20 times the normal speed. The brain was practicing, compressing, and filing what it had learned. During REM sleep, something different but equally important happens. The brain takes the newly consolidated memories and begins connecting them to existing knowledge, finding patterns, drawing connections, integrating new information into the larger map of what you already know. This is why you sometimes wake up with the solution to a problem you were struggling with the night before. Your brain solved it while you slept. And during stage 2 sleep, the sleep spindles transfer information from the hippocampus to the cortex, the brain's long-term storage system. This transfer is not passive. It is an active, energy-intensive process that requires adequate sleep time to complete. Cut your sleep short and the transfer is incomplete. The information sits in the inbox, temporary, fragile, waiting to be overwritten by tomorrow's new experiences. Brain fact: MIT researchers found that rat brains replay daytime learning experiences during sleep at 20 times the normal speed, essentially practicing what they learned while they rest. Part 5. Memory consolidation. Memory consolidation is the process by which newly learned information becomes stable, long-term memory. It is one of the most studied processes in neuroscience and one of the most important for anyone who is trying to learn anything. Here's the key insight. Consolidation doesn't happen primarily while you are studying. It happens primarily while you sleep. When you study, you are encoding. You are putting information into your brain's temporary storage. This is necessary, but consolidation is only the first step. Without consolidation, without the sleep that turns temporary encoding into permanent memory, the studying is largely wasted. This explains the failure of all-night studying. The information gets encoded, it sits in the hippocampus, but without sleep, the consolidation process cannot occur. By morning, the information is still there, barely. It's fragile, unstable, easily disrupted. 1 hour of exam stress is enough to scatter it. There's a famous experiment that demonstrates this perfectly. 2 groups of people learned the same list of words. Group A slept normally after.
Part 6, the hippocampus and cortex. I want to go a little deeper into the brain geography here because understanding where memories live and how they move is essential for understanding how to use sleep for learning. Your brain has 2 main memory systems that work together during learning and sleep. The first is the hippocampus. This small seahorse-shaped structure sits deep inside your brain's temporal lobe. It is your brain's rapid learning system. It can form new memories quickly from a single experience. It is the part of your brain that remembers where you parked your car this morning, what you had for breakfast, the new English word you learned an hour ago. It is fast, flexible, and essential for learning new things. But it has a critical weakness: limited capacity. The hippocampus can only hold so much information before it begins to overwrite old memories with new ones. It is like a scratch pad, essential for writing things down quickly, but not designed for long-term storage. The second system is the neocortex, the large wrinkled outer layer of your brain. This is your brain's slow learning system. It builds knowledge gradually over many repetitions and exposures. It is where your long-term knowledge lives, your language, your skills, your deep understanding of concepts. It is slow to learn, but extremely stable once something is stored there. The transfer of memories from hippocampus to cortex, the process of moving information from fast temporary storage to slow permanent storage, happens primarily during sleep, specifically during stage 2 sleep spindles and deep slow wave sleep. This transfer takes time, it requires adequate sleep, and it requires repetition over multiple nights, which is why spaced practice and consistent sleep are more effective than cramming followed by 1 night of sleep. Science fact: the hippocampus is called the brain's index. It holds a map of where memories are stored in the cortex. During sleep, it literally transfers files from temporary to permanent storage. Part 7. REM sleep and learning. REM sleep, the dreaming stage, deserves its own chapter because it does something for learning that no other stage of sleep can do. During REM sleep, the brain is highly active, but it is active in a specific and unusual way. The prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical, executive part of your brain, is mostly offline. The limbic system, the emotional, associative, creative part, is highly active. The brain is making connections that the logical daytime brain would not make. It is thinking associatively, not analytically. This produces several important effects for learning. Pattern recognition. During REM, the brain searches for patterns across everything it has stored, connecting new information to old information in non-obvious ways. This is why people often have insights during or after sleep. The REM brain found a connection the waking brain had missed. Emotional memory processing. REM sleep strips the emotional charge from memories while preserving the factual content. This is why, over time, painful memories become less painful. The facts remain, but the intense emotion fades. For language learning, this is important. It means that the anxiety you feel when learning in a second language is processed and reduced during REM sleep. Language integration. Multiple studies have shown that REM sleep specifically benefits language learning, particularly grammar, syntax, and the intuitive feel for a language that goes beyond memorized rules. Native speakers use grammar correctly not because they remember the rules, but because the patterns are deeply integrated. REM sleep is part of how that integration happens.
When you cut your sleep short, when you sleep 5 hours instead of 8, you lose disproportionately more REM sleep, since REM is concentrated in the last hours of the sleep cycle. You wake up with memories consolidated but less creatively processed, less emotionally integrated, less deeply learned. Science fact: REM sleep reduces emotional intensity of memories while preserving factual content. Language anxiety decreases after good REM sleep, making the next day's learning easier. Part 8. The experiment that changed everything. In 2006, researchers at the University of Lübeck in Germany published a study that became one of the most cited in sleep research. I want to tell you about it because it demonstrates something about sleep and learning that is almost difficult to believe until you understand the mechanism behind it. The researchers gave participants a mathematical problem. The problem could be solved the long way through a series of steps that required careful work, or it could be solved the short way through a hidden shortcut that was not immediately obvious and required a kind of insight. Participants were taught the long method and asked to practice it. Then one group slept and one group stayed awake. 8 hours later, both groups were tested again. The results were striking. In the group that stayed awake, about 20% of participants discovered the shortcut on their own through practice and thinking. In the group that slept, nearly 60% discovered it. The sleep group was 3 times more likely to have the insight. They had not been taught the shortcut, they had not studied it, they had simply slept, and their brains, during sleep, had found the pattern that their waking minds had missed. This is one of the most important things sleep does for learning. It does not just consolidate what you studied, it processes it. It finds the deeper structure. It extracts the underlying pattern and makes it available to your waking mind in a form it could not access before sleep. The implications for how we should approach learning are significant. Sleep is not the reward you give yourself after studying. Sleep is part of the studying itself. Science fact: University of Lübeck, 2006. People who slept were 3 times more likely to discover a hidden mathematical shortcut than those who stayed awake without any additional study. Part 9. Can you really learn a language while sleeping? Now we come to the question that most people are actually asking when they search for this topic. Can you put on headphones, play an audio recording of vocabulary words, go to sleep, and wake up having learned them? The honest answer is it depends on what you mean by learning while sleeping and what stage of sleep the learning is happening in. Let me be clear about what does not work. Playing complex new material, full sentences, new concepts, detailed explanations to someone who is deeply asleep does not cause learning in any meaningful sense. The deeply sleeping brain is not in a state to form new explicit memories. The information may enter the ears, but it does not reach the hippocampus in a form that will become usable memory. This version of sleep learning, the idea that you can learn entirely new information while unconscious, is largely a myth that the research does not support. But, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting, the research on what can happen during sleep is more complex and more promising than most people realize. There's a specific window of opportunity. During light sleep, stage 1 and early stage 2, the brain is still partially responsive to external stimuli. Information presented during this window can, under specific conditions, influence memory. But the key word is already known. The brain during light sleep can strengthen and consolidate material it has already encoded while awake. It is not learning new things, it is practicing things it already knows. And during stage 2 specifically, during those sleep spindles, there is evidence that gently reactivating recently learned memories through subtle cues can enhance their consolidation. This is called targeted memory reactivation, and it is real. Science fact: targeted memory reactivation, TMR, playing gentle cues, sounds, or smells associated with learning during stage 2 sleep can enhance memory consolidation by up to 20%. Part 10. What the science actually says. Let me summarize what the current science actually supports and what it doesn't. I want to be precise here because this topic has attracted a lot of wishful thinking and commercial products that claim more than the evidence supports. what is supported by strong evidence. Sleep after learning significantly improves memory consolidation and long-term retention. This is one of the most replicated findings in cognitive neuroscience. Sleeping after studying is not optional for optimal learning, it is essential. Napping after learning, even a short nap of 20 to 90 minutes, produces measurable improvements in memory performance. The effect is real and significant. Targeted memory reactivation, playing subtle audio cues during stage 2 sleep, can enhance the consolidation of already learned material. Multiple studies from institutions including Northwestern University, where I work, have demonstrated this effect. REM sleep specifically benefits language learning, pattern recognition, and creative problem solving. Getting adequate REM, which means sleeping long enough and not cutting off the end of your sleep cycle, is particularly important for language learners. What is not supported by strong evidence, learning entirely new, complex material while deeply asleep. Playing English lessons at full volume while you sleep deeply will not teach you English. It may disrupt your sleep, which will actually make your learning worse. The conclusion is this: sleep does not do your learning for you, but it does complete it, deepen it, and integrate it in ways that nothing else can. It is not magic, it is biology. Practical tip: do not play loud audio while sleeping to learn new material. This disrupts sleep and prevents consolidation. You will remember less, not more.
Part 11. The power nap. Let me talk about naps, because naps, specifically strategic naps taken at the right time and for the right duration, are one of the most underused learning tools available to anyone, anywhere, for free. There are 3 types of naps that have been studied extensively, and each has different effects on learning and cognitive performance. The 10 to 20-minute nap. This is the classic power nap. It stays in stage 1 and stage 2 sleep, light sleep only. Because you do not enter deep sleep, you wake up feeling alert rather than groggy. This nap is excellent for restoring alertness, improving mood, and enhancing focus for the next few hours. For learning, it provides a small but real boost to working memory and attention. Best taken in the early afternoon. The 60-minute nap. This nap reaches deep sleep, stage 3. It provides significant memory consolidation benefits, particularly for factual learning. The risk is sleep inertia, that groggy, disoriented feeling that comes from being woken during deep sleep. Allow 15 to 20 minutes after waking for full alertness to return. Despite the grogginess, the memory benefits are substantial. The 90-minute nap. This is a full sleep cycle, including REM. It provides the most comprehensive cognitive benefits: memory consolidation, creativity, emotional processing, and REM-dependent learning integration. Waking at the end of a cycle means you avoid sleep inertia. This nap is essentially a mini night of sleep. It is the most powerful learning nap, but requires the most time. For English learners specifically, I recommend this. Study for 30 to 45 minutes, then take a 20-minute nap. The combination of focused study followed by immediate sleep consolidation is more effective than 60 to 90 minutes of continuous studying without a nap. Science fact: NASA researchers found that a 26-minute nap improved pilot performance by 34% and alertness by 100%. The U.S. military officially incorporates strategic napping into training programs. Part 12. Sleep and creativity. I want to spend a moment on creativity because it's one of the most surprising and least discussed benefits of sleep for learners, particularly language learners. Language learning is not only about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. At a higher level, it's about intuition, the ability to produce and understand language fluidly without consciously applying rules. It's about feeling the language, not just knowing it. And this intuitive level of language knowledge is built in large part during REM sleep. During REM, the brain makes associative connections, linking things across categories in ways that the logical waking brain normally would not. This is the neurological basis of metaphor, of humor, of the creative use of language that makes a speaker sound natural rather than mechanical. There is historical evidence for this. Many of history's most famous creative breakthroughs happened during or immediately after sleep. The chemist August Kekule discovered the ring structure of benzene after dreaming of a snake biting its own tail. Paul McCartney woke up one morning with the melody of yesterday fully formed in his mind. Thomas Edison reportedly napped deliberately to access the half-awake state between sleep and waking, which he called the hypnagogic state, specifically to generate creative ideas. For language learners, this means that after learning new vocabulary or grammar, sleep allows your brain to find creative connections between the new material and what you already know. These connections are what transform memorized knowledge into fluent usage. They cannot be forced by more studying. They happen naturally during sleep. Science fact: the hypnagogic state, the period between waking and sleeping, is associated with some of the most creative thinking the brain produces. Edison used it deliberately by holding steel balls while napping. Part 13, the pre-sleep study method. Now, let me give you something practical, a specific research-backed method for using sleep to enhance your learning. I call it the pre-sleep study method, though researchers use different names for versions of this approach. The core principle is simple. What you study immediately before sleeping will be preferentially consolidated during the sleep that follows. The brain prioritizes recent, unresolved learning for consolidation. Information that is freshly encoded that has not yet been consolidated gets first priority in the brain's nighttime filing process. This means that the 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed are arguably the most valuable learning time of your day. What you put in during that window goes directly into the consolidation queue. How to use it? 30 minutes before bed, review the material you most want to remember. Not new material you have already studied during the day that you want to strengthen. Vocabulary words you learned this week, grammar patterns you've been working on, the pronunciation of specific sounds. Keep this review calm and focused, not stressful, not rushed. The goal is gentle reactivation of the memories, not intensive study. Read through your notes, say the words aloud softly. Then sleep. A full night. Do not cut it short. In the morning, before looking at your phone or doing anything demanding, try to recall what you reviewed the night before. This morning retrieval practice is another research-supported technique. The act of retrieving a memory makes it stronger, and the morning brain, fresh from consolidation, is in the optimal state for this practice. Practical tip: review vocabulary for 20 to 30 minutes before sleeping. Say words aloud softly, then sleep 7 to 9 hours. Test yourself in the morning before checking your phone. This 3-step sequence maximizes consolidation. Part 14, audio learning during sleep. Since I said earlier that playing audio during deep sleep does not create new memories, you might be wondering, is there any valid use of audio during sleep for learning purposes? The answer is yes, but it must be done correctly and with realistic expectations. The research on targeted memory reactivation gives us a specific and validated method. Here's how it works. While you are studying, fully awake, you associate a specific sound or smell with the material you are learning. For example, you learn 10 new English vocabulary words while a specific piece of calm background music plays softly. The music becomes associated with those words in your memory. That night, during sleep, the same music is played very softly at a volume that doesn't wake you, roughly the volume of a quiet whisper. Research shows this is approximately 40 decibels or lower. The sound cue reactivates the memory traces associated with it in the hippocampus, triggering the consolidation process for those specific memories. The brain, recognizing the familiar cue, prioritizes those memories for strengthening during the current sleep cycle. Studies using this method have shown memory improvements of 15 to 20% for the cued material compared to non-cued material learned in the same session. The effect is real and reproducible. Important conditions: the audio must be soft enough not to wake you or disrupt your sleep stages. You must have already learned the material while awake. This technique enhances consolidation of existing memories. It does not create new ones. And sleep quality must be protected. If the audio is disrupting your sleep, the benefit is lost. Practical tip: study vocabulary while soft background music plays. That night, play the same music at very low volume, whisper level. The music acts as a memory cue, boosting consolidation of what you studied by up to 20%. Part 15, the dream connection. Dreams are one of the most mysterious aspects of sleep and one of the most directly connected to learning. I want to talk about dreams not as mystical experiences, but as a window into what your brain is doing with newly learned material. Research from Harvard and other institutions has shown that people who dream about material they are learning perform better on subsequent tests of that material than those who did not dream about it. This was demonstrated beautifully in a study of people learning a complex virtual maze. Those who reported dreaming about navigating the maze showed dramatically better performance the next day than those who did not dream about it, even though both groups slept for the same amount of time. The dream was not just entertaining the sleeper, it was a signal that the brain was actively processing and integrating the new learning during sleep. Dreaming about something you studied is not just a coincidence, it's your brain telling you that it's working on it. For language learners, this has an interesting practical implication. If you're learning English and you begin to dream in English, or with English words appearing in your dreams, this is not just a charming milestone. It's neurological evidence that the language is being integrated at a deep level. The English is moving from conscious, effortful processing towards something more automatic, more intuitive. You can't force yourself to dream about your studies, but you can make it more likely. Study the material, engage with it genuinely and with interest, expose yourself to it consistently, and then sleep well. The dreams, if they come, are a sign that your brain has accepted the material as worth processing deeply.
Part 16, What Destroys Sleep Learning? Understanding how to use sleep for learning requires understanding what disrupts it. There are several common habits that significantly impair sleep quality and therefore impair the learning consolidation that depends on it. Screens before bed. The blue light emitted by phones, tablets, and computers suppresses melatonin, the hormone that signals to your brain that it is time to sleep. Using screens in the hour before bed delays sleep onset and reduces the quality of early sleep stages. This means reduced deep sleep and reduced consolidation in the first part of your night. For learners, this is particularly damaging. Alcohol. Many people use alcohol to help them fall asleep. This is neurologically counterproductive. While alcohol does help you fall asleep faster, it dramatically suppresses REM sleep in the first half of the night. You may sleep for 8 hours but get significantly less REM, meaning less language integration, less creative processing, less emotional memory processing. The sleep feels adequate but is neurologically impoverished. Caffeine too late. Caffeine has a half-life of approximately 5 to 6 hours. A coffee at 3 in the afternoon means half that caffeine is still active at 8 or 9 in the evening. It delays sleep onset and reduces deep sleep quality even when you do not feel it actively keeping you awake. Inconsistent sleep schedule. Your brain's sleep architecture is regulated by circadian rhythms, biological clocks that run on a roughly 24-hour cycle. Irregular sleep times, different bedtimes and wake times each day, disrupt these rhythms and reduce sleep quality. Consistent sleep and wake times, even on weekends, are strongly associated with better memory consolidation. Chronic sleep deprivation. Getting 6 hours of sleep instead of 8 does not mean you're getting 75% of the benefit. The relationship is nonlinear. The last 2 hours of sleep, disproportionately rich in REM, are critical. Consistently cutting them produces cumulative cognitive impairment that most people underestimate because they adapt to feeling tired. Practical tip. Stop screens 1 hour before bed. No alcohol on study nights. No caffeine after 2 p.m. Go to sleep and wake up at the same time every day, including weekends. These 4 habits protect your learning consolidation. Part 17. Maya's 30-day sleep study. I want to share something personal here. 2 years ago, I ran an informal experiment on myself, a 30-day study of my own learning and sleep. I'm a neuroscientist, and I know the dangers of self-experimentation and confirmation bias, but I also believe that researchers should live by the principles they study, so I tried.
For the first 15 days, I studied Japanese, a language I had attempted twice before and abandoned. I studied for 45 minutes each evening, then I went to sleep at inconsistent times, sometimes 11, sometimes 1 in the morning, sometimes with my phone in bed, sometimes with a glass of wine. Normal, messy, real-life sleep. I tracked my vocabulary retention with a flashcard app. After 15 days, I had learned approximately 60 words with reasonable retention. For the next 15 days, I kept the same 45 minutes of evening study, same material, same method, but I changed only the sleep. I went to bed at 10:30 every night. I stopped screens at 9:30, no alcohol, no caffeine after noon. I slept until 6:30 every morning, 8 hours, consistent. The results were not subtle. In 15 days with optimized sleep, I learned and retained approximately 110 words, nearly double the first period. My accuracy on grammar pattern tests went from 62% to 81%, and something qualitative changed too. The language began to feel more available, less like a list I was memorizing and more like something I was starting to recognize. Same study time, same material, same method, different sleep. Nearly double the result. I was a neuroscientist who studied sleep, and I still had to run the experiment on myself to fully believe it. Science fact. Maya's self-experiment. Same 45 minutes of study per day. Poor sleep, 60 words retained in 15 days. Optimized sleep, 110 words retained in 15 days. Same study time, nearly double the result. Part 18. The perfect learning day. Based on everything the research tells us and everything my own experience has confirmed, let me describe what an optimal learning day looks like for someone who is seriously trying to improve their English. Morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Wake up at a consistent time. Before checking your phone, spend 10 minutes doing retrieval practice. Try to recall what you studied the night before. Write it down, say it aloud, test yourself. This morning retrieval strengthens consolidation that happened during sleep and is one of the highest value uses of your first waking minutes. Morning study session, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. The morning brain, fresh from sleep, is in its optimal state for learning new material, vocabulary, grammar concepts, listening practice. This is the time for new input. Keep it focused. 30 to 60 minutes of quality attention is more valuable than 2 hours of distracted study. Afternoon nap, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. If your schedule allows, and I encourage you to make it allow, a 20 to 30-minute nap in the early afternoon interrupts the natural post-lunch dip and refreshes working memory for the afternoon session. Even 10 minutes helps. Afternoon session, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Practice and application, speaking practice, writing, reviewing material from the morning. The afternoon brain is less good at learning new things, but excellent at practicing and applying what it already knows. Evening review, 9 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. 30 minutes before bed, review the day's key material calmly. Vocabulary words, important phrases, nothing new, just gentle reactivation. Soft background music if you are using the targeted memory reactivation method. Sleep, 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., 8 to 8.5 hours, consistent bedtime, no screens for the preceding hour, no alcohol, cool, dark room. This is not relaxation time. This is the most productive learning time of the day. Practical tip. The perfect learning day. Morning retrieval, morning study, afternoon nap, afternoon practice, evening review, 8 hours sleep. Each step builds on the last. Sleep is not at the end because it is a reward. It is there because it completes everything that came before it. Part 19. Practical tips for English learners. Let me bring everything together into a clear, practical guide specifically for English learners. These are the most evidence-based, actionable things you can do to use sleep as a learning tool. Tip 1. Protect your sleep like a study session. You wouldn't cancel a study session without reason. Do not cancel your sleep. 8 hours is not a luxury, it's the minimum for full memory consolidation. If you're choosing between 1 more hour of studying and 1 more hour of sleeping, choose sleep, almost always. Tip 2. Study before sleeping, not only before exams. Review your English vocabulary every night before bed, not just when a test is coming. The pre-sleep window is valuable every night, not crisis nights. 20 minutes of calm review before bed every night compounds dramatically over weeks and months. Tip 3. Use the same background music. Choose a specific playlist of calm, non-lyrical music for your study sessions. Use only that playlist. That night, play it very softly while you sleep, volume of a quiet whisper. The music cues consolidation of the associated material. This is real science, not folklore. Tip 4. Test yourself in the morning. Before checking social media, before breakfast, before anything demanding, take 5 minutes to recall what you studied the night before. Write it, say it, test yourself. This morning retrieval is one of the single most effective memory strengthening techniques known to science. Tip 5. Take strategic naps. A 20-minute nap after studying is more effective than 20 more minutes of studying. Use the nap as a study tool, not a guilty pleasure. Your brain is working during that nap, even if you are not. Tip 6. Protect your REM sleep. REM sleep, which benefits language specifically, is concentrated in the last 2 hours of sleep. Getting 6 hours instead of 8 cuts this critical stage dramatically. Protect the end of your sleep as carefully as the beginning. Tip 7. Be consistent. Same bedtime, same wake time, every day. Your brain's consolidation system works best when it can predict the sleep schedule and prepare accordingly. Irregular sleep, even if the total hours are the same, reduces consolidation efficiency. Part 20. Sleep is not wasted time. I want to end where I began, with the 19-year-old version of me in a dorm room in Boston, drinking cold coffee, highlighting yellow sentences, choosing to stay awake instead of sleep because I believed that being awake was the same as being productive. I was wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong, about something fundamental. The belief that sleep is wasted time, that the hours you spend